And so we've got a whole lot to talk about tonight, and I'm going to start with something that just happened. It just happened, and it happened again. And it just sort of really encapsulates what we have been talking about and the frustration of many, many Americans. Rational, thinking, compassionate, empathetic people. I'm talking about school board meetings turning into battlefields over issues such as mask mandates or vaccines or how to teach race in our schools. And I'm not going to highlight the people who turn up at those meetings and they yell and they scream. Instead, I want you to hear what it's like on the other side. A board member in Brevard County, Florida, is telling her colleagues tonight that she doesn't have a problem with people expressing their opinions about school board policies, but it's the personal threats that she finds intolerable.
I reject them following me around in a car, following my car around. I reject them saying that they're coming for me, that I need to beg for mercy. I reject that when they are using their First Amendment rights on public property, they're also going behind my home and brandishing their weapons to my neighbors, that they're making false DCF claims against me to my daughter, that I have to take a DCF investigator to her play date to go underneath her clothing and check for burn marks. That's what I'm against, which is a credible threat and calculated.
That's the environment we're living in right now. That sums up the entire environment that we're living in right now, and that what we've been living in for the past 5 or 6 years. That kind of thinking. Come on, people. The threats to school board members needs to stop. We need to have civilized conversations with each other. We can agree to disagree, of course. Look, Chris and I do it all the time. We don't just do it here on television. We do it over a dinner table. We do it out hanging out with each other. We do it over the phone. We do it over we disagree with each other all the time. But letting anger rule the day and threatening someone and their family and then making false claims about it and feeling like that you are entitled, that is in fact reality, it's not. That is not what this country is all about, at least what it shouldn't be. But that's where we are now. Now, let's talk about what's happening, or isn't, with the Democrats in Washington when it comes to passing two of the biggest pieces of President Biden's domestic legislative agenda: his $1 trillion infrastructure plan and his social safety net package. Democrats are stubbornly divided into two camps, and those camps are still far apart. Tick-tock. Clock is ticking. Midterm elections, now a little bit more than a year away. And if the Democrats fail to pass meaningful jobs and economic legislation, the consequences could be dire for anyone running in 2022 or 2024. It will be dire. Mark my words. Maybe too far. I don't know, I think they still might have some time to pull it back, but the window is quickly closing. That's how big the stakes are right now. Moderate senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, they're the linchpins to getting the social safety net legislation passed, fighting back against House progressives who want to spend at least $3.5 trillion. Manchin and Sinema demanding the bill be pared back to around $1.5 trillion. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
I'm very disappointed that we're not going with the original $3.5 trillion, which was very transformative. Well, let me just say that at $3.5 trillion, we were doing everything well. So not a question of now we're doing it well because it's less money. But the fact is that if there are fewer dollars to spend, there are choices to be made.
Yeah, $3 trillion over 10 years, right? Over 10 years. Not just like this year or next year or whatever. It's 10 years. Do you hear that message, though? Do less, but get something done. The White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki insisting progress is being made in the negotiations, but also acknowledging the key roles being played by Manchin and Sinema.
The president's view is that we're continuing to make progress. We're having important discussions about what a package that is smaller than $3.5 trillion would look like. Those conversations have to happen with a range of members.
There is no doubt that the Biden White House is aware that the president's poll numbers are dropping with each passing week, that the legislation is stalled. To the average American, it looks like there is too much infighting among Democrats, that they don't know how to govern effectively. Jen Psaki trying to put a smiley face on the whole situation.
We don't get too glum around here, even if things look challenging. Our view and his view is that he was elected to continue to press forward and address the challenges the American people are facing.
And guess what? The news is worse for Republicans. You know why? Because they are abandoning all their long-held principles and selling their souls to the former guy's big lie.
The single biggest issue, the issue that gets the most pull, the most respect, the biggest cheers, is talking about the election fraud of 2020 presidential election. The Justice Department was scared or impotent. They didn't want to do anything about it. As the Supreme Court refused to hear the case by Texas and almost 20 other states, it's been going on for years, but never
Can
like
we
this.
stop it? Stop it. I'm sorry for running that. I try not to run that. Here's what I try to do. I'm just going to be completely transparent with you. I don't want to run those rallies on the show. That one got past me. I'm sorry. I'd rather just summarize what he says. We know that if he actually said something that was true and that made sense, then running the soundbite makes sense. So again, but what he does there, and that's the frustration from most people. Do you play the propaganda? Do you cover it? After all, he's the former president and there's a threat to our democracy. I get it. But do you have to elevate his lies? Constant struggle for legitimate news organizations. So spouting off one lie after another, putting our democracy at risk, that's what he's doing. It is sad that so many Republicans in America believe the lies of a twice impeached sore loser. But it's even worse. These are the sound bites that we should be running. It's even worse when sitting members of Congress, people who are in power now, like respected GOP Senator Chuck Grassley, Congressman Steve Scalise, the #2 House Republican, that they go along with these lies and his nonsense. Of him encouraging hundreds of his supporters to attend a rally in Michigan State Capitol today, calling for an Arizona-type audit or fraud of the 2020 Michigan results. Biden beat Trump by more than 150,000 votes. And then remember the fraud, Biden actually got more votes from the people who were actually on Trump's side, saying that there was election fraud and not finding any, and then it ended up giving Biden more votes in the win. But then there's the sore loser calling the results a scam. This is also a very important week for the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th insurrection, which Republicans from Trump on down are downplaying. Remember there, at least 5 people died in that horrific violence. 5 people. Trump telling 4 of his former aides who received the first round of subpoenas to just ignore them. Steve Bannon already telling the committee to take a hike. He and Kash Patel are scheduled to give depositions on Thursday. Mark Meadows, Dan Scavino on Friday. Committee member Adam Schiff warning of consequences if they do not cooperate.
We're not messing around. If people don't show up, if people don't provide the documents they're compelled to, we intend to take up criminal contempt and refer to the Justice Department, and we expect that it will be prosecuted. Unlike the last administration, no one is above the law, and so we intend to move quickly.
The Select Committee members saying today that they are unified in stating that criminal contempt should be the next step for anyone who defies their subpoena, and that action should be taken very quickly. Americans need to know just how close we came to losing our democracy on January 6th. And Americans also need to pay attention to that. But there's still a lingering question. Are we paying close enough attention, right, to the warning signs that are out there in front of us? About the next one, are we?